Hi everyone, welcome to Dave's Bonsai. On today's episode, the Christmas edition. Happy holidays, everybody. So glad you're with me. It's Christmas Eve as I film this, and we tried to get a long winter's nap last night, my wife and I, and we both were up by 5:30. Yeah, kids are gone at their other households. People are coming over today to help us start our 3 days of celebration. The house is pretty clean because we've had the last day or two to kind of do that with the bitter cold we've been having. Right now it's still 1 below zero with wind chills in the 20 below range. It's been that way for the last 36 to 48 hours. It's been brutal. So we've gotten a lot of cleaning done, and now it's not even noon on Christmas Eve, and what do? Well, I work on bonsai. To celebrate the holiday season, I'm going to give these 3 trees their very own pot. Yes, this is my 3 forest. It's not really a forest with 3. It's almost coming more of a clump style. Well, not really clump style either. It's just 3 trees in a pot, and they're angled very, symmetrically, and I know that, of course, and I just put them in here to start growing, and they just kept growing, and I knew one day, or I assumed one day, that I would be putting these in their own pots. And I think it's time, and no time like the present, a holiday gift to them, their own comfortable space. So we're going to find a pot for all 3 of these. We're going to trim them up a little bit and set them up for the rest of winter here in the plant room. You'll notice real quick before we do anything to them is that I've got a lot of new growth on the tree, which is nice, but it is that longer, leggier growth. Now, indoors with artificial light, we're not going to get as good of growth unless the lights are really up there close to these trees. And they're backed off a little bit, and so we have some of this longer, leggier growth. So this is what you get from indoor growth. If it's long and leggy, it's because it's not really as good a light, of course, as you'd like. But it continues to grow and thicken up the trunk. We bring it back down. It's going to continue to grow, and it's all a good thing for right now. So we're going to put these in a pot. Before we do that, a quick update, because I know a ton of you are super on the edge of your chair wondering if my cold frame in the garage is doing its thing now. So I moved my govies. My low one came to the high one. The high one went down to the low one to see if they were both working kind of normal. Of course, and then Candace said, well, Dave, why don't you just put them together in one spot and see if they match? Thanks, Candace. Yeah, I didn't even think of that. So I put them down here, and they did switch, but it wasn't quite as drastic. But what I also did is I moved this one away from the front of the cold frame and put it more in the back, because that front position was real close to the doorway, and I thought drafts. And also the bottom of the doorway didn't have kind of a block piece of foam to help with some of that maybe draft in that bottom section. So I put a piece of foam at the bottom, I put the govie to the back, and lo and behold, they are only about 6 degrees difference, maybe 7 degrees different. Let's pull out the phone right now, live on the recording, and see what the govies are saying. So right now, the garage low, which is actually the high one, is at 45.7 degrees, and the garage high, which is now at the low point, is at 46 degrees. They're like almost identical now. So I believe I've solved my problem. That is awesome. I prevented the draft. I moved the temperature more where it's more accurate, I think. Now I can go in there and tweak down the temperature just a little bit so we hover around 40, not 45. But that's great. The cabin cold frame out in the yard with this frigid cold weather has been maintaining that average in that low 40s the entire time. So the system is working, and that's all super exciting. So there's update number 1 for you. Before I get to the PA repotting, I wanted to show you an update on the holiday cactus. I think I'll just call it a holiday cactus now because I always confuse it still to this day which one it is. Well, I know it's the Thanksgiving cactus. I used to call it the Christmas cactus. I think you guys have understood that by now. But look at the nice new growth. So since we couldn't get the blooms because the cat got to the tree, we went ahead and cut it all up, and now we've got all these new little buds. So the little buds that I showed you maybe a couple of weeks ago, they're almost half an inch long now. There's many of them. and the tree is doing some good growing on most of the branches. A couple here that haven't sprouted yet. One of the things I've noticed in my plant room, because of the non-stop running of the dehumidifier, is everything's drying out super fast. So I'm watering my trees every other day, and they still sometimes look like, ooh, they're drying up here. So I'm gonna have to make sure I continue to watch my watering. And this one's pretty dry here, so we're gonna give that a little water a little later. But there you go. There is the holiday cactus getting some nice growth. Update number 2 for you. Update number 3 for today is actually more of a question to all the viewers out there in YouTube land. I've mentioned this to a couple of people in the Minnesota Bonsai Society Club, and we're wondering if it's some kind of fungus. Not sure what's going on. But here is the windswept tree, the Premna, that I recently did. There's the one side, and there's the one side. We're trying to get that windswept look. And if you look real carefully, I'll remove this one out of the way. If you look real carefully at the leaves on this one, I'll try to get it nice and close for you, and I'll zoom up in post-production a little bit. There are the leaves of the Premna that seems to be of quote-unquote normal health down in my plant room in the back corner with all my other Premnas. So there is the Premna with the nice dark green leaves, and they're pretty smooth in color, not a lot of discoloration. Everything looks pretty good. Okay, now let's show you this other tree. So this is one of my other trees. I repotted this one a good couple of months ago, and the leaves have kind of dried up and fallen off, and then they keep growing new leaves. So it's growing like crazy, but it won't keep its leaves. And I want to show you a couple of these leaves. Let's see if I can get a close-up now of these leaves. So let's go ahead and look at this area right here, and they've got this kind of white, pasty looking look to them right there. Let me show you another set of leaves here. So right by my finger there. So there, they've got kind of a powdery mildew on there, some kind of powdery fungus issue with these leaves, and they grow and then they fall off. So this tree has ramified really fun. It's kind of nice to see it in its naked form, because I've got some movement down here and some fun stuff, but the leaves aren't staying on, and I don't know if that's something in the root system, if that's just a fungus I've developed here in my plant room, but there's all kinds of new shoots continuing to pop out. So it wants to grow, but I'm wondering what's getting on here, and why doesn't it get on this one, which is only a couple of inches away. I have to say that many of my Premnas have this, nothing else in the plant room do, and this Premna has been saved. Now I have sprayed these Premna twice with just your really basic neem oil and soap type sprays, right? So a little bit of neem oil. I did try a different kind of horticultural oil that's very similar to a neem oil to see if that would get it taken care of, but nothing seems to be knocking this fungus off. And of course, I always try to stay away from chemicals. I have some copper fungicide, which I could try next. I'm not sure what's going on with this tree. I also have another something I ordered this past summer, which is to deal with some possible fungus and mite and insect issues. That kind of covers a multitude of things. I might try that as well. I have to read the directions on that and see if that's something I can do. Any suggestions would be awesome. Please hit up the comments for me and what you're thinking this might be, how you would treat this. I've not seen this kind of widespread fungus, if you will, in my plant room ever. And so I don't know what is creating this, and it's just on my Premnas. So there again is side by side, light green versus dark green. And then that, I'll make sure that that close-up is working for you. And give me some hints in that comment. I'd love some advice from all of you on what you might do and what you think it might be. And I'll continue my research as well. And when I find out, I'll try to update you on the next show. So these are going to go back on the shelf. All right, it is showtime. We're going to get these Portulacaria afras out of this soil, and we're going to put them into some new pots. So let's do some digging and getting these out of here. I'll have to go back and look at the archive footage to see when I started these trees. I've had them for a good couple of years. They do thicken up real nice, pretty fast. So you can have a tree this thick from a cutting in probably 3 to 5 years without much trouble. Nice and tight around the edges. I have no idea what the root structure is going to look like on these guys. Sticking to the bottom a little bit. There we go. There we have our rectangle full of some roots. Let's take a peek at that real quick, huh? Oh, look at all that on the bottom. Nice roots developed all the way around. Certainly not root bound by any stretch or pot bound. We've got plenty of room for more roots to establish. We will slowly take away the soil from this mini forest, quote unquote, of 3. Got a lot of roots in here. Be careful not to damage some of these roots. And we'll see how these trees can separate and find their next pot all by themselves. I don't have a lot of great selections of pots on hand right now in the more like ceramic, glazed, nice bright color to put it in a blue or something like that. But I do have one blue pot over here. I have a black pot and I have a couple of kind of brown pots. This will not be by any stretch the final resting spot for any of these trees, so I'll continue my search for pots that will suit these trees better in the future. But for this repotting, this is one of those where, okay, we're finally going to change the style of this guy, or these 3 guys or gals, and we are going to just put them in a pot that's just going to give them more independent growth and success, hopefully, and not so much together anymore. Just kind of see where these roots, see how they've taken in this pot. I see a wire in here, which I'm surprised to see because it doesn't go through the bottom, so I don't know where I connected these 2 guys. Oh yeah, it wraps around. Oh, here it is right here. Yeah, I'm not remembering this at all. And it wasn't connected to the pot. So there we go. Oh, and that's hugged into the. We've got the drainage screen right there. And then some wire coming up with it. All right. I'm going to cut that off so I don't damage anything up in there. There, drainage screen of that training pot. Now that tree's getting loose. And here we have tree number 1. So there, look at tree number 1. So far, just at first glance, we got a couple of big roots. We have some feeder roots. We have a side that's not as well developed. And we're going to go ahead and take a peek at this a little bit closer in a moment. But for right now, we'll set this one aside, and not a bad first image anyway. I like that. We'll put that aside. Here's the other drainage screen that popped right out of the tray. So if I would have released those screens from the bottom, I would have had no trouble popping this thing out early on. There we go. There's the other drainage screen, and that means these 2 are probably going to break apart real nice. So here's the second one. Now this one was planted at the most severe slant angle, which is got a nice little flare at the bottom. So this was planted this way, so we got this nice root here that grips on to where, and there's a little bit of a root here. There's one right here we can develop. There's also a nice one in the back. It kind of bumps up a little bit, but that could also thicken up, and we could see that exposed someday if we want that kind of look. So there's tree number 2 with a, decent radial feel, a little bit weaker on this side right here. We see it growing this way and this way pretty nice and thick in the back. We'll put that one aside. And then the big monster from the middle has the best looking Nabari of all of them. And the best root structure. Look at this. This is pretty thick all the way around. It's a little weaker on this side as far as density, but there's still rocks in here, so let's make sure we clear all those out. But if you look at this one a little bit closer, look at down here, this nice root right in here. There's this nice one right there, and there's one right there. There's a big one right there, and there's one right there. Right here, this is kind of that Nabari we're looking for, that nice wide feel to the base of that tree. I'm going to be able to raise that up in its new pot and show that off just a little bit. And we've got a really nice established Nabari to this tree. Where the tree meets that soil is going to look really quite fascinating, in the sense that it's going to look older, right? We're looking for an older looking tree, and the girth of that trunk, any kind of nabari that flares at the bottom, so it's not just a pole in the ground, a stick in a pot, is going to make that tree look a lot older. And I know I'm covering up and it's a weird angle, but if you can see around that tree right there, this flares out nicely at the bottom. This will be the prize tree out of all three of those. That one will be in the best pot that I can find. So as I start to clip away some of these extra roots that are just a little bit long, we know we're not going to keep, just get this little silhouette of the root structure going. Cut off some of these bigger ones. We'll do some more thinning out in a moment, but we just got that basic structure of the tree now ready. And look at that, nice and flat. We comb out our roots, and we're going to have just a nice root system. Whenever you repot, take that time to look at those roots, and when we get it into this next pot, we are really going to spread out these roots so we know where they're going, which ones we want to keep. We might even take some away. There. That's a better indication right there of how things are going to look right there. So again, we've got some longer ones. And we'll wait to see what pot we choose for this one. And let's look at our pot selections here for this first tree. So the first one I grabbed today, just because I thought I might need a bigger pot, was this brown one right here. And it's a little bit deep of a pot, but will provide a lot of security and strength to this big tree. It's a real heavy pot, really nicely constructed pot, and we could have this in here. Now I'm not crazy about the color, and I knew that picking it out with the trunk and the leaves the way they are. This pot does not like show off the tree the best as far as color. But this is going to be its next training pot until I find that pot that I like it to go in better, if I choose this one. So keep that in mind. No, it's not the best color. I won't like it in this tree pot as much, but that is one option for us today. The other one I have is a little bit darker pot, and it's round and oval. It's a little bit richer of a color. This one's not as bad, at first glance anyway. I don't mind that one quite as bad. So that's probably the front right about there. And we can keep this off to this side and get some growth over here and fill up some of this negative space. So this one wouldn't be too bad. This is a nice size for this pot. So we have about an inch trunk, and we have about 1.5 inches to 2 top to bottom here thickness of this pot. So it's a pretty decent fit in here. Yep, we could even go smaller and it'd make the tree look even older. But again, training pot for the future. So it's not going to stand up, so let's just go ahead and use our imagination right there. Timber, there we go. So I think that one's okay. I like that one better than the first one. So this dark one is a possibility for sure. Now I do have two with color, and they're a little bit shallower, but not too much. And with this tree where it's at with growth, this wouldn't be bad in here either, I don't think. But here's my blue one. It's more of a longer rectangle, so we have more negative space here. We could put a rock in here. We could let this tree grow out more this direction, I should say. And so there's the blue pot. It's a little bit dirty right now. I didn't polish this one up by any stretch. But this gives a little bit of color. Do we want to see some color in this composition? And that certainly looks a lot prettier. It gives you a little bit more flair. It may frame the tree a little bit better. You know, it's a solo tree, oval or rectangle. Both would work really, really well. So that's an option for this tree. So we'll put that one aside. We've got two there. And the last one I have is a pot that I might save for other trees, because I do love this one with the black pot and the nice light colored tan feet. And I don't know if what that's gonna do with this tree right here. It's a little bit narrower rectangle than I just used, but I love this black pot. I just don't know what tree I want to put in it right now. And so if you can see, those feet gives it a little bit of pop of lighter color. The trunk is lighter than the black, and of course the green leaves will pop out from the black. That's not so bad either. So if you're looking at the front, something like that. Timber, it does not want to stay flat. There's a root in there that's really causing some trouble there. So those are the 4 pots I have, and so we've taken the one out for sure, and we're down to either the black one, or the blue one, or the first darker brown one. Now I'm going to put this tree aside for a moment, because one of my trees is at an angle, this one. So I thought these rectangle pots would be great for one of my trees at an angle because it's a rectangle, right? And we can shove it over here just off of center and have it lean one way. And then we can have more growth this way, again, like almost windswept back this direction. And so, right there, could we have that tree right about there? And that might look better in the rectangle pot than the tall tree. And I like that look. I think that's better for this tree than the taller one because of the length of the pot, and it's got a little bit more of length to the tree here, left to right, and a little bit lower, and this just kind of fits together right now. And as it gets a little bit bigger, taller, and wider, I think this pot would do really well. Now, because it does well with that black pot, it also most likely will do good with the blue pot as well. Not so bad. I kind of like the black one better. Let's bring that black one back here. Yeah, I just like the slanted one with the black one. We're going to save this black one for the slanted one. And again, will it stay there more than a year or two? I don't know. So then we got this back in the blue, which is more of a straight up. See, for some reason, this taller, thicker tree in this blue rectangle compared to that slanted tree just seems to feel a little bit better. And if I don't go with that one, I would go with this one right here, this oval, which fits the tree really, really nice. You know, you'd almost have to plant this one right in the center, maybe just a little off to this one side right here. And look at that. That's not so bad either. Sitting up in the tree a little bit more like this up here, so you can see that root flare just a little bit. I think that's looking okay. That's looking okay. This is where a live feed from y'all would be great. Could you help me decide? I do like it in this blue pot too. I don't know if it's because of the color of the pot or the shape of the pot. So to maybe help me with my decision, I have the third and final tree. And maybe the third and final tree needs to be in this oval one instead of the big rectangle, which maybe it looks lost in. This one looks a little more lost in this tree, so maybe this one is better for this tree. And I do have a bit of a wound right here. Now I know Nigel Saunders has taken his Portulacaria apheris and scratched marks in there to give it more texture like the elephants came. It is an elephant bush, right? And came and worked on that tree. But I could probably put this one again more slant like the other tree, just a little slant to this one because of the way this design is going right now. And put this one in the smaller oval one. I think that's what I'm going to do. Again, keep in mind, of the pots I have, these are probably my best choices. And so of those three, with the 3 trees I have, we're going to put the first one in this one right here and just have it in this more shallow rectangle to the biggest tree. We will cut off some today so it'll be smaller, but let's get that one up. And this might show off the Nabari a little bit better too. There is a lip on this pot compared to the other one has a fancier lip. This one just might sit up here a little bit nicer and show off the trunk. So I'm going to prepare some soil, clean out this dirty pot, and we'll pot this thing up next. We have pot number 1 all prepared for the big tree. So we're going to scoop up a little bit of the original soil in here for the bigs on the bottom. So I'm a firm believer, I don't have a lot of scientific proof, but I'm a firm believer that using some of the recycled soil is a little bit beneficial for our trees, because when we repot a tree and we just put this brand new, brand spanking, really stale soil in there, that we lose all of the nutrient value of our soil. And so there's all kinds of people doing some research. I just listened to the Asymmetry podcast with Ryan Neal, talking with, I'm going to have to put her name on the screen afterwards, from Ireland, who's doing some great work with Peter Warren, and they're doing some research on, you know, all the bacteria and fungi and what you can do for supplements for your soil. Fascinating stuff. You have to listen to this asymmetry podcast like 2 or 3 times over to really understand what they're talking about, or at least for me. But worth checking out, and worth checking out some of Peter Warren's videos to talk about all this stuff. You can add not just the seaweeds and fish oils, but some of the other products that are out there. Which ones are more like snake oil and which ones are really helping the trees out. And so I have used a lot of recycled soil that's not broken down too much, because there's still some nutrients, I believe, left in there. And even the soil that I'm putting in here right now has a few of the roots from this very tree right here that have dried up a little bit and fallen off. And they're in there, they're going to break down, and that's going to provide some nitrogen for this tree. So we're going to put new refresher soil on top, and I've got the bottom layer, the little bit bigger ones on the bottom. And we're going to go ahead now, and we're going to finish trimming off some of these longer roots here. We're going to see if we're going to take any of these out to promote some of this radial root pattern. Anything from the bottom, this is a big one here sticking out at the bottom, that's coming right off. We want nice and flat at the bottom, and everything to come off from the sides in that radial pattern. We've got kind of a bumpy root right here. I've got this one down here that's at a lower plane. We're going to cut that off too, and hopefully it grows more down and out from where it was cut off from. So really flattened out on the bottom now. So there we have a really flat bottom. We've got our roots. So now let's get a mound of the new soil. I'm also going to use my soil here that has a little bit less of the akadama in it. Akadama does hold a lot more moisture, better than the pumice and the lava rock. And so some people put 100% akadama on some of their trees, and that's going to hold a lot more moisture. So we build up our mound. We're going to move this thing a little bit to the left. Now I'm looking at the front right now, not you all, so we'll show it to you in a moment. And we're going to put this down right about here. I think it's a pretty good level in the pot. I'm going to tip it a little bit towards me. And then now this is that point where, what do we got here? I have one root growing right from this big root right here. There's a big one that would make a bit of a bulge. I'm going to take that one off right there. There, now that root is just solid, and there's roots growing from it. There's a root in here that grows real twisty. Right here, goes down, over, and down. That's kind of an odd one. I'm just going to cut it by where it turns back sharply to the right and get that out of there. So maybe it'll just flare out more. We'll see. This one's starting to go up a little bit, so we're going to cut that one off. That's a big chunk of roots right there. We want the roots to come more down and spread out from that direction. I like this root right there. This one again has one growing right on top right there, and one down here kind of on top. We'll cut that one off to promote the bottom maybe to grow more. This one looks like it's dried up here and kind of died off. We're going to cut that off. And there's still roots below it though, so we'll let that heal up and see what we get from that point right there. We have one root right here kind of sticking up from this Nabari section. Little tiny one trying to grow right there. Okay. I think we have the roots where I want them spread out and flared out. I'm changing my mind about this one. This is just going too much in the wrong direction. We're going to cut that out and hope for promoting a new piece right there. Left a couple of holes in here. I think this one is hollowed out as well. Let's growing down below, but not off to the side here. We'll cut that one off right there and promote some new growth there. Okay. Now I'm going to have to bury this in soil for a little bit. I won't be able to have that nabari exposed until it takes hold in this pot. Here is the first bit of pruning just to bring everything down to where it was. We've got it down to now all the big branches, all those little ones, some of them facing down, some of them just growing on the inside of the branches. And so I could leave this tree right here, but now I want to reanalyze it to see if there's anything else I want to change about this tree right now. Well, we have it on the cutting table here. So this branch right in here is long and straight, nothing going on there. And then it competes with this stuff up here, right here. It competes with the back over here. So that whole branch could come off one day, but let's just go ahead and cut it right here by this node and see what kind of new growth we get. Because then now this will ramify and we'll see if we like it or not, or maybe take it off one day. And now the top part's super cluttered. We've got a really nice divide into 4 up here. It splits off into the 2 directions, but then it also splits front to back. It's a really nice cluster of branches. But look at this nice big straight section right there. Be nice if that happened a little bit lower down to the tree. And then this back one here, look at how it has some nice movement. So here's that directional pruning. We took it off right here, and it came up over here and went up a little bit. Now it's cut into 2, and then these have cut into 2. So it's doing a really good job of ramifying. Let me cut off this little stub here. There we go. It just kind of broke off. So what I could do with this tree is cut off this big tall section right here and leave this as the new leader, because you've got these branches back here in the back that could become also, they feed off of that feeder of that trunk. And in order to show off that back branch back there, that would be kind of nice. So I'm going to take the bold move of cutting that one off today, and we'll have to put this one as a cutting. Right there. So we'll put that in the ground as a cutting. So look, there's that 4 top up there. It splits into 2, then into 2 again. Makes for a nice little tree right out at the get-go. That could be a really nice little tree in a new little pot of its own. So we'll set that aside. Now let me look at this tree from the front. Yeah, so now we can see the activity in the back and see what's going on. There's an inside one growing right here. I don't want that right now. This one's going also towards this other branch. That's there right now. Now I have these 2 right off of each other. They are bar branches, but look, this has some nice movement. This one does not, but it's thicker. But we have thick trunk, thinner here, and thinnest here. What if I cut this one off right there? There is, again, that one I just cut off that wants to grow new yeah, I don't mind that branch right now, but this right here again, this division, if it happened right down here, would be fantastic. Now it did before, branch, but we cut it to get this movement on here. Now I wonder if we should have cut it down and get some more growth. I don't want to cut too much off this tree after repotting it. I'm just going to cut this tip off here. A downward facing leaf. A downward facing leaf. I'm kind of inclined to just leave that alone for right now. So if we come back to this clutter of stuff up here, this one's competing, so I'm going to cut this one off and thin this out a little bit. Cut this leaf off right here. Cut this leaf off right there. And now these back ones, I'm going to actually cut this one so it doesn't go too much to the back and grows more out. Maybe we want out and up. Here's another down-facing branch or leaf. Yeah, so that splits up this and opens it up a little bit more. This is kind of competing a little bit, but I could cut this off and go for that split right there. But I just want to leave that alone for right now as well. This bottom one. All right. Cutting off a couple little ones that are just facing the wrong direction here. So I thought about keeping this, but look, that's straight up and it's competing against these two back here. We're just going to cut that off. See if I can clean it up just a little bit. Yeah. There we go. And now these two are growing same plane, same direction, but we're going to wait till something maybe shoots up here on some of these branches before we do anything with this one right here. I will cut off this big leaf going inside. I'll cut this one from going down right there, opens that up a little bit more. And we'll just see what those two do. This one also is growing in towards the other branch, so let's just cut it off for now and let the energy go to the back side here. Get this downward facing one off. Downward facing one off. And we'll just leave it at that to see what happens. I don't mind this one for the moment. We could even cut this whole entire branch back for this one some days. We'd have this kind of curvy undulation that way. We'll cut this leaf from going this direction. This leaf's going straight up in the air. This leaf's growing into the other leaf or branch. We don't want that. There we go. Got another leaf here growing inside. This leaf is growing towards this other branch. So if I was in the mindset of when I work with Peter T, I probably would cut all these down to nubs like this one and then just get the ramification. But I don't think I'm in the mood to do that today. I think I'm just going to leave it where it's at and see what happens down here for this winter growth in the plant room. Now, we can make decisions like that in the summertime when it's got better healing qualities. Even though the plant room is a good weather system, it's okay, it's a good neutral environment, I think we'll leave it just like that. So I do want to put a couple of rocks on here, and then we're going to go ahead and give it a little bit of water because it is definitely loose, and I want to make sure that that does not come up and wobble a bit. Now, and because I want it to stay a little bit more true to form here, a little bit more rocks, we'll cover that Nabari up just a little bit. This is not a show tree right now. No one's going to be seeing this in a show. Just a little more substance right there. Let's make sure it's at the angle I want it. All right. I've got this fun old wraparound rock right here. Kind of covers up that tree just a little bit, but that's all right. It's kind of a fun wraparound rock that way, isn't it? But I need this heavier one in the front, I think. Okay. Well, maybe I don't. There we go. I like that, how it hugs over there better. There we go. So there is the first one, the PA in its new blue pot, a little trimmed up, a little bit of water, and it goes back on the shelf.